On November 8th, 2004, I had been hospitalized with a serious case of influenza, which was depressing, as I had planned to go to the midnight release of Halo 2. Thankfully, a family friend of ours, who had been planning to take me along to pick up his own copy, grabbed mine for me. Now, when I was 8 years old, I had a bit more intellectual capability, and thus I was able to fully be gripped by a game that grew to be my favorite in the series. Now, in the year of our Lord 2026, I am able to understand and appreciate the highs and lows of my favorite Halo game. I'm Zach with etc. etc. Welcome to my Halo 2 Retrospective.
I'm going to cut it.
The production of Halo 2 is legendary, in that it was a complete disaster. How did it get to this point? Following the massive success of Halo 1, many within Bungie, including Microsoft and Jason Jones, who notoriously hated sequels, wanted to create a follow-up game. However, there were severe issues from the beginning. Alex Seropian, the co-founder of Bungie and one of the key members of management, left Bungie, as a reorg with Microsoft led to him wanting to go home to Chicago and focus on his family. Thus, leadership was left at the feet of Jason Jones. However, his exhaustion from Halo 1's development and his focus on development itself instead of people management led to many of the creatives, namely the likes of Joe Staten, Jamie Griesmer, and Marty O'Donnell, gaining more independence, turning into mini-managers themselves. And yet, despite these issues, the 60-man team at Bungie was full of ambition. This ambition and the push by Microsoft led to an overwhelming amount of ideas from the team, leading to each separate team wanting to add their own favorite feature. This led to what is known as feature creep, that all too familiar phrase of, quote, wouldn't it be cool if blank, end quote, would be thrown around the different teams, and without a strong central leadership, the individual team leaders would just simply give the go-ahead. So, cinematics, weapons, vehicles, mechanics, and environments were worked on for 2 years to prepare for the E3 2003 demo. This was when E3 was a more serious game development expo, instead of being yet another convention, which meant it was critical for the presentation to be successful, as both Microsoft and the team itself had high expectations for this game.
It's amazing to me how good stuff looks and how much progress we have, but something I've been thinking a lot about is E3.
E3 stands for the Electronic Entertainment Expo, and it's the biggest event in the video game world where all the developers and all the publishers and all the gaming press all get together for, it's almost a week-long carnival, practically.
I don't say the word awesome. Usually dude doesn't come out of my mouth, But the truth is, the game is awesome, dude.
How the hell are we gonna beat this game?
Hurry it up, let's get it out of here.
No, we can't wait another year. I'm sorry, we can't wait. This game has to come out now.
This type of development where the department leads were made into mini managers was exacerbated by the fact they rarely communicated with each other. This led to feature creep and bloat that culminated in the 8-minute E3 demo that was played live. Whilst exciting for the time, showcasing many of the features that would be prominent in the game, such as boarding and dual wielding, thanks to the bloat due to every team jamming everything they possibly could into the demo, it resulted in an unusable slab of code and assets. Any attempt to utilize them was already pushing the limits of the Xbox hardware and the game engine. Meaning, instead of having a solid piece of game they could slot into a level or have a base to pull code from, all they had was a demo.
We had a vision in our mind about what Halo 2 would look like, and that vision is really easy to see in the Halo 2 announcement trailer. Stencil shadows on everything, real-time reflections in the Master Chief's visor, this very crisp, well-wrought image. And we thought, well, that's what we're going to show for E3. And when we got to the actual implementation of some of the choices we had made, we realized that it's impossible. And we went around and around on that and other questions for perhaps too long.
Thing ever.
We came back with E3 with actually less than what we wanted to. We came back from E3 with a demo. We did not come back from E3 with a playable part of a level.
This led to the infamous crunch. Thanks to the efforts of Ed Fries, who threatened resignation with Microsoft to buy Bungie more development time, they were able to have a year. However, it would serve to be one of the worst development crunches in gaming history.
More time would be well done.
CJ doesn't need us until next year.
If we could have some more time, that would be great, but the fans are screaming.
More time.
Yeah, we could have used a lot more time.
If you can invent a 75-hour day, you'd be my best friend.
We're not asking to work shorter days. We're asking to work as hard as we're working right now, but just 2 weeks.
I wish I had drunk more. I wish I had drank back then, but I didn't.
That's what people say on their deathbed, I think.
It's so funny. Like, the Halo 1 crunch was, it was intense, but I don't have any negative memories of it at all.
No,
Halo 2, I have so many. And Halo 3, even I have some, but man, Halo 1, I just feel like I was having fun the whole time.
Yeah.
Even with this time, there was pressure from above at Microsoft. With Xbox Live launching, the focus on integrating online multiplayer took away manpower from the campaign and other core features. To help with this crunch, Jones and Staten started going through content and cutting everything deemed unnecessary. This led to Jones locking himself in a room and reworking the script, with some assistance from Staten. With a plan in place, Bungie spent 8 months in hyper-crunch mode to get the game ready to ship for November 2004, with many working 7-day weeks, sleeping in the office, and shifting their personal lives to work more. And with a payment of blood and sweat, Halo 2 was ready for release. It should be noted that unlike Halo 1, most of my footage will be of the Halo 2 anniversary version. The Halo 2 remaster is, in my opinion, the gold standard for how to remaster a game. This shall be my jumping off point for me to speak on graphics in general. While perhaps I will make a video on how to critique graphics themselves in the future, let us, for the sake of brevity, say that the criteria for what makes graphics quote-unquote good would be the following. 1. Consistency in direction or style. 2. That direction or style is a character in and of itself. 3. The graphics function in a way that isn't jarring or getting in the way of the gameplay. Note how I do not take graphical fidelity into account when critiquing graphics. Fidelity, ironically enough, really only matters when the art direction is going for realism. Most any game that focuses its art direction on photorealism is vulnerable to the critique on its graphical fidelity, with age serving as the killer for these games. The Last of Us 1 is the perfect example of this. At the time, it was at the top of the food chain in terms of graphical fidelity. Yet today, the original game looks horribly dated in terms of modern standards. With these standards in mind, let us examine the original graphics of Halo. Halo 1 was able to stand the test of time due to its wholly unique art style. The art direction of Halo in the Bungie era was one of its greatest pillars, the others being gameplay and story. Even with the details of texture resolution and character faces in the original being low quality, it's saved by the overall art style and direction. The art style is consistent, it has a character. Forerunner locations feel different than human or Covenant locations, and it helps the player get a feel for the game itself, and also serves to assist the player in gameplay. It doesn't get in the way. Now let us look at the style of Halo 2. As Halo was never planned to have a sequel, the team decided to revamp the art style. Gone is the more aliens and 80s sci-fi inspired UNSC, and instead a more grounded near-future UNSC takes its place. Instead of the sci-fi steel gray armor and weapons, we get a more modern green and traditional gunmetal color. However, it also suffers from trying to dip into realism. The Halo 2 original graphics are dated. Unlike Halo 1, which was able to use its unique art style and direction to shine, even with inferior polygon and overall lower fidelity counts, Halo 2 has a Halo feel to it, in that it is unmistakable for another franchise, yet it is also very dated. The Anniversary does its job. It brings the Halo 2 art style up to modern levels of fidelity, and the Blur remakes of the Halo 2 cutscenes did bring tears to my eyes when I first saw them, I'm willing to admit. The updating of the in-game graphical fidelity was done to make it the best looking mainline game, with only Reach having a superior overall graphical quality in my opinion. And of course the Anniversary Edition has issues, but we'll get to those when we get to the Anniversary itself. The opening shot of the destroyed Halo ring, panning over to High Charity, serves to demonstrate to the player that the story is taking a turn from the first game. We get to see the Covenant capital, with a trial occurring for the presumed commander of the Covenant forces from the first game. With the opening scene, we're being exposed exponentially more to the Covenant than the first game. This was mostly due to pushing by Jamie Griesmer and Joe Staten. As a result, the Covenant and the Elite in this cutscene, Thelvidame, get focus in this game. Getting to see the consequences for this commander of our enemy from Halo 1 is fascinating, and I recall being enthralled by this cutscene when playing this game for the first time. The trial is being held with the presumed leaders of the Covenant. We are also faced with another expansion in scope with the cast. Keith David plays the role of Thelvidame here, with powerful actors such as Michael Wincott playing the Prophet of Truth. After this initial scene, we are launched into the intro for the Master Chief, Cairo Station. We are introduced to the new suit for the Master Chief, the Mark VI. Gone are the slow recharging shields and health monitors. Now we have a more modern regenerating health system. While you have overall less health, regenerating quickly means you will have a more consistent base to design encounters around. We also get a bit of comedy with the introduction of Sergeant Major Avery Johnson. Instead of being the simple sniper sergeant from Halo 1 who died all the time, Bungie moved to make him a major supporting character. And of course, there's this joke/quote from the dev commentary.
Yeah, that was pretty. Here we go.
You're gonna tell me how you made it back home in one piece.
How did you?
Classified.
Classified. That's good writing.
Well, you can
Thank you. Oh wait. There's a grand tradition in Halo games of never really explaining how we get from one to the other. Almost, but not really, like we hadn't actually planned to make the next one.
What?
I mean, we always do. I'm just saying it's like we hadn't really planned it.
I remember when we were doing the Cortana letters years ago, where we had the entire plan from the beginning of the Cortana letters to the end of the trilogy. I remember that whole story arc, yeah.
Right. I think we might have lost that plan.
It is essentially an open secret that it doesn't really make sense how Johnson was here, but like Jones' philosophy at the time, who cares? Even the book First Strike glosses over how Johnson actually got off the ring with his appearance, but whatever. We are introduced to more of the cast. Thelvidame is being led to his punishment while Chief and Johnson are being awarded alongside a new character, Miranda Keyes, the daughter of Captain Keyes. We have Ron Perlman voicing Fleet Admiral Lord Terrence Hood, whilst Kevin Richardson voices Tartarus. Thelvidame is being punished for allowing Halo to be destroyed, and after the ceremony, Covenant forces have found Earth, leading to Chief being forced to defend the station.
Chief, defend this station.
Yes, sir. I need a weapon.
Right this way.
Immediately we find ourselves with the intro to the new human arsenal. The primary weapon in this game is the BR-55 battle rifle. The now iconic 3-round burst precision rifle is a mainstay of the game and will be a mainstay of the series. Alongside it, we have the M7 SMG, a bullet hose that is more along the lines of the MA5B assault rifle from the first game. And finally, we see the M6C pistol, a poor replacement for the iconic M6D from Halo 1. Now, obviously, the Halo 1 pistol was broken, and thus, as per the trend that will become apparent, powerful weapons will be nerfed the next game. A new addition to this game is the ability to dual-wield weapons, the most effective pairing in my opinion being a plasma pistol and pistol, knocking out a shield and headshotting elites. Otherwise, it is the first and will not be the last attempt by Bungie to add a fourth pillar to the Halo combat formula. In Halo 1, the 3 pillars of interaction were shooting, melee, and grenades. Bungie, in line with their ambition, wanted to add a fourth pillar to the formula. Due to the constraints of development, Bungie was forced to settle for dual-wielding as being the fourth potential pillar. Unfortunately, dual-wielding is simply too inconsistent and gimmicky to be a true pillar of combat. The weapons you can use for it are generally too weak on higher difficulties to be useful. The plasma rifle, SMGs, and pistols are not nearly useful enough to make dual-wielding worth it. The only exception would be dual needlers, which can obliterate any non-hunter enemy in the game. However, the ammunition, save for the heretic levels, isn't nearly plentiful enough for the mechanic to be a reliable pillar. As we move through the rest of the games in this series, we'll see how Bungie attempts to implement a fourth pillar. Moving on, we engage our first combat encounter of Halo 2, defending this initial room from waves of Covenant. Dealing with the first encounter, we move on through the halls of Cairo Station and are inundated with the new human architecture. Instead of the clean, hard sci-fi of Halo 1, we have a near-future, more naturalistic, and definitely more human feeling. We make our way to a hangar bay for Pelicans, and we see one of the boarding craft with more Covenant pouring out from it. With Marine support, we engage the Covenant forces. Dealing with them, we get another vignette where the Malta station, quote, drove off its boarders. However, we see it explode.
Malta, what is your status? Over.
I don't believe it! They're retreating! We won!
This is bad.
It exploded. Real bad. We fight our way to a second hangar bay where the Covenant have taken over. Dealing with the grunts, we can utilize the turrets ourselves to put the hurt on the Covenant forces. Unfortunately, we see the Athens suffer the same fate as the Malta, and we learn the Covenant have brought a bomb aboard our station.
Cortana, assessment.
That explosion came from inside the Athens, same as the Malta. The Covenant must have brought something with them. A bomb.
And they sure as hell brought one here. Chief, fine.
Cutting through the ammunition storage, we find ourselves in the armory, where we started the game, with the armor himself scripted to die here. Taking his shotgun, we start fighting through the Covenant-controlled sections of the station, and after cutting a swath through the Covenant forces, we find ourselves assisting Miranda and Johnson, who are attempting to get to their ship. We clear out the Covenant here and fight outside in low gravity. And I also get filtered by jetpack elites.
I have a bomb.
Can you defuse it?
Yes, but I'll need the Chief's help to make contact with the detonator.
Chief, get to the bomb.
I have a bomb.
Can you defuse it?
Yes, but I'll need the Chief's help to make contact with the detonator.
Chief, get to the bomb. Double time. Cortana, prioritize targets and fire it.
Moving into a cargo bay, we engage a new enemy type, buggers. They are a highly mobile grunt in that they are individually weak, but their ability to fly and large numbers make them incredibly dangerous. Taking care of the buggers, a group of Spec Ops Covenant aboard a cargo lift need to be cleansed. Doing so, we go outside again, engaging more jetpack elites and a plasma turret. This time, they didn't filter me. However, I must admit, the elites guarding the bomb sure did. Regardless, we get one of the greatest cutscenes ever, and while it doesn't make much sense, it is just pure awesome. And let us listen to how 3 of the most important members of Bungie think of it.
Sound to it.
That's because I never saw it.
Me, inside your head, now.
Now,
oh, the pickle.
Jason, do you remember why we put the Covenant space pickle in Halo 2?
Okay, Jason, explain this
I
one.
just remember you were supposed to hitch it to the back of it and Jeep and drive it.
That's right, I forgot about that.
You were supposed to drive it all the way across the ship. That would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome. But instead, you did probably one of the most amazingly ridiculous cutscenes in the history of games.
Well, I figure if you're gonna cut a level, this is the way to cut it. I won't.
By creating just as much work.
Based on this cinematic alone.
No, you just add a giant Covenant space pickle. Gunk!
So somehow, the airlock depressurization shoots the pickle perfectly towards the Covenant ship.
That's right.
The Chief's good.
And then who exactly, while he's floating through the air, who blasts this open for him?
The bombers come in, don't you see? It's all, see, here they come.
Is somebody telling them to do that? Like Cortana, maybe?
Let's just say that Cortana, she talks to other people while you're doing stuff.
And the music is too loud for us to hear that, which is good.
I think the music is definitely too loud.
With that level complete, we head to Earth.
Permission to leave the station.
For what purpose, Master Chief?
To give the Covenant back their bomb.
The Covenant carrier that charged past the orbital defenses has taken up a position over the city center of New Mombasa. This cutscene tells us there is the Prophet of Regret aboard that ship, and right now, we need to cut through the Covenant and board the ship. Our flight of 3 Pelicans is intercepted by a new Covenant threat, however, a Scarab tank. Shooting down the Pelicans, including ours, we crash land in the outskirts of the city. Recovering from the crash, we fight our way out into the courtyard, taking cover in a local building. We fight off waves of Covenant with jackals making their appearance. After taking on many waves of Covenant forces, including buggers and a phantom dropship, which has replaced the Spirit from Halo 1, a Pelican comes on site, indicating we need to go to a neighboring area to get pickup. However, the gate is torn apart by a pair of hunters. Yet, thanks to a conveniently placed machine gun turret, we cut down the hunters with relative ease. Fighting to the LZ, we get the first of many sniper jackals, infamous for one-shotting you on Legendary. On Heroic, they just two-shot us. Johnson is put onto the Pelican, removing our immortal companion from the mix, and we take the Marines and take on the infamous Jackal Alley.
Let me at him! The place! Marines, the chief is down!
Making it to Hotel Zanzibar, we link up with Sergeant Stacker and his men, and fight our way to the main highway. After clearing out the Covenant forces, we rescue a Warthog being chased by ghosts. We hop in, and it's time for a Warthog section.
Oh man, I love the beach. I hope you packed a suit, mate.
Cut the chatter. We got trouble.
That's the way!
This tunnel links up to the bridge. It's full of rats. Keep swimming.
Where'd you learn to snipe? 6 points on that one. Oh! Hey, keep it up! Hey! Let's go down! How's your drink, guys?
Fleeing the highway tunnel system, we make our way to the next level, Metropolis. Starting with one of my favorite cutscenes, which, again, was faithfully recreated by Blur in the Anniversary.
When I joined the Corps, we didn't have any fancy schmancy tanks. We had sticks, 2 sticks and a rock for a whole platoon, and we had to share the rock. Buck up, boy. You're one very lucky Marine.
What about that Scarab?
We've all run the simulations. They're tough, but they ain't invincible. Stay with the Master Chief. He'll know what to do.
Yes, sir, Sergeant. Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
we get to start our first tank section, and we get to see the next iteration of the M808B main battle tank. Thankfully, this tank is superior to the Halo 1 tank in every way. Whilst the tank is still silly in its design in general, gameplay-wise, it's still slow as hell, but it shoots fast, is accurate, and the machine gun isn't useless. Meaning, it's time to become the demon.
Well, before I leave,
Crossing the bridge and entering another tunnel, we get a CQB sequence with a convenient Marine delivering us a shotgun. And this is a good time to point out one of the many quality of life features added to Halo 2. We can swap weapons with our allies, and gone are the days where we killed the sniper Marine for his sniper. Of course, my mentality on harder difficulties is usually giving power weapons with one shot left in them to the Marines, as they have infinite ammo in their hands. Punching through the Covenant forces underground, we make our way to another outside arena with more sniper jackals. Sniping some of them, we begin the main combat encounters here to fight to the heart of the city. Here, we get full-scale war with the Covenant. We have access to the entire human arsenal, and most of the Covenant vehicles and forces are present. Clearing out the bulk of the Covenant forces, the UNSC comes in to reinforce the area. We meet up with Sergeant Banks and come face to face with the Scarab. It's time to take it down. Heading up to
that thing is really starting to piss me off! Marine, time to kill off the Scarab.
Heading up to the water treatment plant, we use a gratuitous amount of explosives, rockets, and sniper rifles to wipe out the defense forces on the Scarab. After doing so, we board the Scarab and take down its crew and destroy it. How do we destroy it? Well...
That is some good-looking effects work.
How exactly...
And you shot the biggest, glowiest thing you could find.
Okay. I understand now. You mothers!
The Prophet attempts to flee. We quickly return to the Amberclad and chase the ship, as it opens a slipspace portal inside the city, causing destruction as it does so. Now, as we chase, we have to get settled in for a long cutscene, before the next level, the Arbiter. This cutscene was controversial at the time, mostly being accused of being far too long and jarring for players. In fact, the decision to play as the Arbiter at all was controversial. At the time, I loved this cutscene. I wanted to get to know the Covenant more, and this was the perfect opportunity. And having people like Michael Wincott being the Prophet of Truth is just, mwah, chef's kiss.
It was your error, and you rightly bear the blame. But the Council was overzealous. We know you are no heretic. This is the true face of heresy, one who would subvert our faith and incite rebellion against the High Council. Our prophet.
Getting more information on the Sangheili and how their Arbiter is basically pulled up to do crucial tasks in times of crisis is amazing. And now this disgraced commander, Thel Vedame, is going to take up the mantle, and now we are going to go hunt down a heretic. Following the initial scene in High Charity, we get another lore drop with the Oath of the Covenant.
When we joined the Covenant, we took an oath. According to our station, all without exception,
On the blood of our fathers, on the blood of our sons, we swore to uphold the covenant, even to our dying breath. Those who would break this oath are heretics, worthy of neither pity nor mercy. Even now, they use our Lord's creations to broadcast their lies. We shall grind them into dust and continue our march to glorious salvation.
After the cutscene, we get another major turn for the series where we're actually playing as the Arbiter, an elite, our enemy. Now, many normies and secondaries hate the Arbiter levels for some reason. Their arguments are often along the lines of, well, it isn't Chief, so it isn't Halo. These are arguments made by people who usually skip cutscenes or regurgitate arguments without understanding their content. The only real argument we have against the Arbiter levels would be that yes, not playing as Chief takes away one of the prime aspects of Halo's fantasy, where you can insert yourself as a faceless hero of humanity. I don't put much stock into this argument. There are a plethora of other RPGs, or shooters even, where you play as a named character and do not suffer the inability to immerse yourself. Geralt of Rivia is the prime example of this. Save for bad faith argumentation, most players wouldn't say they aren't able to role-play or express themselves when they're playing The Witcher 3. This tracks to the Arbiter. We can express ourselves in our gameplay the same way the Chief allows us to. You can play the Arbiter as an aggressive murder machine who uses stealth to get into advantageous positions to engage his foes. Others might be more precise plinkers, relying on their precision weapons. Our ability to have our own playstyles are not hampered at all. In fact, unlike an RPG wherein our interaction is part of defining the character through matters that aren't combat, an FPS is in fact easier to immerse yourself in. We only interact with Halo games through combat. Thus, when the Arbiter makes decisions or has dialogue and cutscenes, much like the Chief, our immersion isn't destroyed because we, the player, don't have influence on that in the first place. As far as gameplay changes, the only real change is that we get to have active camo, like the other elites, though of course ours is a weaker version for gameplay reasons, and even the guys at Bungie think this is silly.
At least that's what I
love this line.
That's why I get to sleep at night.
Yes, Joe, I think you're absolutely right. This is what I love, though. Your armor system's not as new as ours, and we're going to, just completely jip you out of the invisibility in about, 10 seconds. Oh, that worked out great.
Game designer. What was fun about that?
On Legendary, it was even less than 10 seconds.
Was it really?
I was basically didn't even do anything.
Regardless, we fight the heretic forces here. They are made up almost entirely of elites and grunts with a smattering of sentinels. Their arms are mostly carbines and needlers with the occasional sentinel beam. Among the new weapons, the sentinel beam in Halo 2 is alright. It's good against shields, but struggles against flesh. The carbine is mostly just an inferior battle rifle. The battle rifle just has an overall superior performance. The battle rifle is more accurate, the battle rifle has a tighter spread, and has a better TTK in multiplayer. The carbine is just inferior in every category, ever so slightly. By this level, we will have experienced or get to use the entirety of the roster of weapons, so let's take a moment to go over the gameplay of Halo 2.
In Halo 1, there was maybe 30 seconds of fun that happened over and over and over and over again. So if you can get 30 seconds of fun, you can pretty much stretch that out to be an entire game. Encountering a bunch of guys, melee attacking one of them before they were aware, throwing a grenade into a group of other guys, and then cleaning up the stragglers before they could surround you. And so you can have all the great graphics and all the different characters and lots of different weapons with amazing effects, but if you don't nail that 30 seconds, you're not going to have a great game.
This quote by Griezmer is often misappropriated by those who don't understand what he was saying. If you wish to know what he actually meant, there is a talk he gave on developing the first Halo game seen in the description. To provide a brief explanation of what Jamie was talking about, he was talking about how a single 30-second time frame is where your core interactions with the game are and need to be fun. More specifically, every interaction with the game is done in a quick and frenetic pace. In an FPS like Halo, it is done via the 3 pillars of interaction, which again were shooting, melee, and grenades. These are the means that the player has to interact with your game and solve the problems you put in front of them. thus forcing you to design your encounters to encourage your players to push these methods to their limits. With multiple weapons, grenades, vehicles, whatever, the player is faced with engaging with various scenarios the developers created to challenge them. The 30 seconds of fun is all the decisions the player makes on how to use those various tools, and the 3 pillars of interaction to engage with those scenarios, or in other words, the moment-to-moment gameplay. Understanding this, let's take a moment to understand the primary tools you will be using. Weapons. Starting with the human arsenal, we will have the nerfed M6C pistol. It really doesn't have a purpose besides being a niche precision weapon in close range, so killing grunts or unshielded elites. And after Halo 1, Bungie clearly wanted to wipe away the notoriety of the Halo 1 pistol. Thus, the Halo 2 pistol is pretty much useless outside of normal and below. Next would be the M7 SMG. Intended to fill the role of the Halo 1 assault rifle, it is a close-range bullet hose. Again, however, it really doesn't have a use outside of the occasional dual-wielding, and it could be said to be intentional in its design. You can't hold on to much ammo for it, as you need to expend large amounts of it when using it. Weapons in Halo 2 have more emphasis on swapping between weapons, between encounters, to better suit the situation at hand. Thus, the SMG really only has a use as a disposable weapon that if you happen to have one in an appropriate situation, it can be useful sometimes. However, the next weapon, the BR-55 battle rifle, is a true all-round, all-purpose weapon, filling the role the Halo 1 assault rifle was meant to fill. It has good damage, range, and accuracy, and able to handle most any enemy you will encounter. If you don't have an intimate knowledge of the encounters, you can reliably choose a battle rifle and go into almost any encounter. The Halo 2 version of the M90 Close Assault Weapon System, or shotgun, is frankly the weakest iteration of this iconic weapon. In fact, let me make a caveat. It is the weakest in your hands. Later enemies can use this weapon, and on Heroic and above will one-shot you with it. The overall range of the weapon has been nerfed, with all of the pellets entering a different quantum reality once someone is further than 5 feet away from you. And with the Flood not being as focused on like in Halo 1, the need for it is simply less, along with the design of the Flood in this game, which I will cover later in a different section. The SRS-99C S2 AM sniper rifle returns in all its glory. However, its fire rate is slightly nerfed, which is a boon to multiplayer balance, yet it is still a all-round powerhouse weapon. There really isn't much to say about it. It's a sniper rifle. And finally, the M41B Spanker rocket launcher is the most powerful version of the rocket launcher in all of the Halo games. Instead of the slow, easily dodgeable rockets from Halo 1, the Halo 2 rocket launcher is lightning fast, with the ability to lock on and track vehicles, which makes it incredibly reliable in campaign and the bane of all Banshees in multiplayer. And finally, the M9 HEDP frag grenade, again another powerful tool from Halo 1, has been nerfed. However, it does have a more distinct identity and use case. It's able to detonate midair, so you can bounce it off walls and floors to be able to catch certain enemies, namely the Flood, and so it has an actual purpose now. The human arsenal when compared to Halo 1 is significantly more well-rounded and balanced, with no clear best weapon to have at all times. The battle rifle is versatile, but it can be overshadowed by specialized weapons based on the situation. Next, we have the Covenant arsenal. Starting with the ever-so-humble plasma pistol, it returns with the same role it always has, though, as with most Halo 1 weapons, it has been nerfed. No longer is it a slightly slower plasma rifle with the ability to overcharge, it is in fact a simply less effective weapon overall. What keeps the plasma pistol relevant is its overcharge function, which is important on higher difficulties, and it can be dual-wielded, so it makes it good as a temporary weapon. Oh, my beloved plasma rifle has fallen from grace. Another main weapon from Halo 1 has been nerfed. It is now dual-wielding fodder, and, well, its flesh damage has been significantly nerfed, and no longer slows things down when you shoot them. So, it is not my go-to weapon anymore. Rest in peace. The Needler returns. While the Halo 1 variant was a machine made for specifically deleting gold sword elites, the new Needler can be dual-wielded, which makes up for the slower fire rate, and now you can reliably delete most any enemy in the game. And while I personally don't use the Needler too much, as I'm simply not a fan of using it, it is nonetheless a staple of legendary runs. The Carbine is the Covenant answer to the battle rifle. A mainstay weapon that, while ever so slightly worse than the battle rifle in performance, it is near ubiquitous in later portions of the game, and has the precision weapons tag, which makes it an incredibly valuable weapon with dealing with certain enemy types. Following up the Covenant answers to the human arsenal is the beam rifle, the Covenant sniper rifle. It mostly exists in the game to give the Covenant the ability to challenge the player when they possess a sniper rifle, and is the infamous tool of sniper jackals. It performs roughly the same as the human sniper rifle with certain trade-offs. You can fire 2 to 3 shots much quicker, but you overheat instead of having to reload. However, thanks to being used by Covenant troops, it gives you a reliable method to have a sniper rifle handy in certain areas where human weapons won't be around. And next is the fuel rod gun. While it was inaccessible in Halo 1 and the console version, it is now usable in Halo 2. Though in a new form. Its primary gimmick is that it can fire a lot faster than a rocket launcher, and its projectiles can bounce when they're in their minimum safe distance. Other than that, it's kind of rarer than a rocket launcher, and when it does appear, it's mostly more effective when used against you rather than you using it yourself. Though it's pretty funny in multiplayer, just filling a whole room with the fuel rods. Another weapon from Halo 1 that you couldn't use is the Type 1 energy sword, a dominant melee weapon with the ability to lunge as the primary flyer, and the quick slashes with the standard melee button. With 2 exceptions, it can be used to reliably put down any enemy, those 2 exceptions being hunters and brutes. With the former, it's due to them having more melee resistance, and to the latter, it's mostly due to them having a huge health pool. And speaking of brutes, they have their own weapons. The brute plasma rifle is a plasma rifle that shoots faster, meaning it overheats faster. It's red, so it goes faster. The brute shot, however, is a grenade launcher with a sword attached. However, it is again another weapon that performs better for enemies than it does for you. While it can deal with chaff enemies decently enough and can 2-shot brutes, its small magazine and monumentally long reload time makes it really not worth it. And finally, the plasma grenade has got its role better defined. It throws faster, detonates a little quicker, and it has its stick function. So now it's more used to be taking out high priority targets by trying to stick them as opposed to clearing a room. Now, despite the death of my beloved plasma rifle, which will not get any better as the games go on, the new Covenant armory is much like its human counterpart, much more balanced and purposefully designed as an armory, with the possible exception of the brute plasma rifle, which feels kind of just thrown in there. The complete armory of Halo 2 is a much fuller, more fulfilling collection, with the exception of the pistol. There's no clear best weapons to have, and in multiplayer, you'll be happy to have pretty much anything that isn't the pistol. With that, let's reroute back to the mission at hand. We are fighting through the first room of heretics. Having Covenant allies, namely elites, because the grunts usually die, is welcome. Having elites and handing them swords is pretty funny watching them cut down heretics. Having them as allies, I'm often protective of my grunts, even though they die really easily. Regardless, making our way to the elevator, we begin to descend the lift. Our allies point out the Sentinels are working with the heretics. During the previous cutscene, we learned the heretic leader, whom we're assassinating, seems to have learned the Great Journey is false. Fighting in this hangar room, where a Seraph fighter is residing.
True. You'd have a lot of areas to aim at.
Hey, what kind of ship is that there, Joe?
That, my friend, is a Seraph fighter. It is a cinematic model rarely seen. But, funny thing, the Seraph fighter is actually the old Halo Covenant tank, right? That Shikai built.
Yeah.
That ship that you just saw, that sort of round, almost, what do you call it, cuttlefish.
You'll see it at the end of the level.
Used to be a Covenant tank back in the day.
We sneak over to the hangar doors and open them up to bring an allied Phantom and some reinforcements. Then we clear out the hangar. Well, I try to, but I do get filtered quite a bit. Regardless, we make it through the hangar and go to a room with explosive barrels, where I get filtered again. Eventually, we find the heretic leader fleeing. I board a Banshee and give chase. Now, if you know where to go, you can actually skip this section. However, we must also point out an issue with the anniversary version of this game. It replaces all the licensed tracks that outside bands had used with inferior generic tracks, which are in fact worse in every single possible way. I would play the old tracks for you, however, I would run into the same problem 343 had. They are copyright protected, and I can't play them. Eventually, we land in the load zone of the next mission, the Oracle. Entering into the airlock, we get a sign something is wrong. Halfjaw tells us there's a stench in the air. Entering the first room, an observant player can see flood infection forms flying around inside a tank. If it wasn't obvious, it becomes even more so when you enter the next room and heretics are clearly facing off against the flood and are wiped out. Entering the next room, we find several dead flood combat forms, which, if you pre-cut them up with an energy sword, you're going to do yourself a favor in a moment. The heretic leader taunts us with a hollow pill before starting the flood combat encounter. During this encounter, the new mechanics are present. The infection forms are capable of reviving dead combat forms. In fact, the overall durability of the flood has gone down significantly compared to the Halo 1 flood. While I'll cover this in more depth later when I go over the flood, just for now, no, there are major changes on how you fight the flood in this game. Regardless, after this combat encounter, we leave the room with Halfjaw staying behind, and we get onto an elevator for an extended combat sequence where we kill off waves of flood and sentinels, and this elevator descends. And afterwards we have the lab fight. Now, this area is a bit difficult given the new amount of enemies, and given that most all of them will have carbines, it makes it much more difficult. Add heretic reinforcements and we get a very difficult combat encounter. Withdrawing from the lab, Withdrawing from the lab, we find ourselves outside, where reinforcements arrive. Fighting through the heretics and flood forces, we see the heretic leader flee into a panic shelter. And we get a cutscene with one of the most iconic lines in gaming.
How? The cable. I'm going to cut it. Get everyone back to the ships.
You're so obsessed about the bug that you missed the Arbiter's best line of the entire game. The cable. I'm going to cut it.
Yes.
I think a certain Mr. Jason Jones wrote that line, if I'm not mistaken. You know, when you're sitting down with Jones, for people that are listening to this, and you're about to, work on the story, usually what Jones does is he comes to you at the beginning of a game,
and with a line that has to be
with like 2 lines. And one of the handful of lines that you came to me at the beginning of Halo 2 and said, I got, here's the story of Halo 2. Oh, okay, Jason, what's the story of Halo 2? The story of Halo 2 is the cable. I'm going to cut it, and I'm a monument to all your sins. Bam, done. That's the story. Oh, okay, that sounds really cool. Hey, who says those things?
Heading towards the cable, we go ahead and go up this elevator to cut down 4 support pillars holding the cable. Sending the station into freefall, we head back down and chase the heretic leader, fighting through more flood and heretics. Eventually we board a Banshee and chase him back towards the hangar, fighting through the station in reverse this time, with flood and heretics fighting each other. Eventually, we make it back to the hangar and engage in one of the new ideas Halo 2 implements: boss fights. Boss fights were an idea born of the focus on narrative. They came with a sequel, and unfortunately, not all new ideas work. The idea of a boss fight is simply antithetical to how the core gameplay loop of Halo works. Part of the conceit, or the social contract between the players in the game, is that there's a relatively realistic, quote-unquote, amount of damage to kill an enemy. In fact, the reason shields exist is to allow for enemies to basically have a higher health pool. They're tougher to kill, but once you pop the shield, you know you can kill them. And it prevents enemies from feeling like damage sponges, even in reality that the Gold Sword elites, for example, are damage sponges. But once you pop the shields, they die like any other elite. Of course, hunters take a lot of firepower to put down, but you just look at them. They're meant to be mini-bosses. Yet, when we face the heretic leader, who looks just like an elite with a jetpack, he takes multiple sword strikes to kill on heroic and above, which clashes with the player's innate understanding of how the game's world works. For how we actually design a boss with how Halo works, I really don't think you can. The best you can do is to have the mini-bosses that are already in the game. Hunters, Gold Elites, Spec Ops Elites, Brute Honor Guards, etc., etc. How do you create a boss that isn't susceptible to the same strategies we use for them? I don't know, and it isn't a problem Bungie was able to solve. Ultimately, it ends with the bosses in Halo 2 being damage sponges, and taking far too long to kill than they really realistically should, which is why they didn't repeat this idea in Halo 3. Taking down the heretic leader, we have the return of 343 Guilty Spark, who, ironically, had been telling the truth to the heretic leader, creating the first seed of doubt in the ever-faithful Arbiter. With our objective completed, it's time for the next mission, Delta Halo. Following the chasing of Regret through his slipspace jump on Earth, Inebraclad finds Delta Halo, with a funny spit take.
Wait for it. Cigar spit take.
Am I looking at?
Coming up.
That is another Halo.
How many people do you think were shocked by that?
Say what? Another Halo?
Johnson looked shocked.
That's why it's called Halo 2.
Following the reveal of the new Halo, or Halo 2, we join the ODSTs, orbital drop shock troopers, and drop down onto the ring.
Could we possibly make any more noise? I guess so.
The ring. During this landing, we get the rocket launcher to take out the turrets and clear the initial area. Fighting through waves of Covenant reinforcements, eventually Johnson arrives with the Warthog. We drive up the road and get this nice scenic view.
Whoa. It's like a postcard, man. Dear Sarge, kicking ass in outer space. Wish you were here.
I heard that, jackass.
Though the design of this level is slightly strange, we get a Warthog but then immediately have to abandon it to lower a bridge, and then immediately start a tank section. Driving through some ruins, we can take a moment to point out how the art direction is telling us more about the story. In Halo 1, everything was pristine and tailored, until the Flood escaped. Comparing this level to the second level of Halo 1, where the grass was manicured and the tunnels and other Forerunner structure was immaculate. Then, we see the regions here on Delta Halo are in ruin, seemingly abandoned. The reason will be revealed later on, but observant players can tell something is wrong here. Punching through entrenched Covenant forces, we abandon our tank with our reinforcing Marines, and we enter the central building, and continue fighting through the Covenant. Fighting forward, we find a nice-looking ravine filled with sniper jackals.
You always bring me to such nice places.
Afterwards, we find ourselves in the first of many temples. Engaging the Honor Guards, we end Delta Halo and begin Regret. From the cutscene, we learn that Miranda and Johnson will go to secure the Index while we assassinate the Prophet, before he can activate the ring. After the initial encounter, we head outside where we have yet another Sniper Jackal area. Eventually, we fight our way to a platform and engage some hunters, and more troops, wherein we are given reinforcements and equipment. A gondola then arrives, which will take us to the next building in the chain. We will need to travel to all these buildings to reach the Prophet. Why a Pelican couldn't just take us there? Don't ask. When the gondola arrives, we clean up the reinforcing Covenant and take over. We engage buggers and other Covenant troops on a passing gondola before reaching the next building. Entering the building, we engage jackals and buggers guarding the entrance to a submersive elevator vehicle thing. And when we clear them out with a quick grenade when it comes up to the surface, we head inside. And traveling in this vehicle, we get some more lore information.
I've intercepted a secure transmission from Regret's carrier to something called High Charity. It seems to be a formal apology to the prophets of truth and mercy. Apparently, Regret jumped the gun when he attacked Earth. He's asking the other prophets to forgive his premature arrival, arguing that no human presence was foretold. That explains why there were so few ships in his fleet. But it's odd a prophet would have such bad intel about his enemy's homeworld.
Exiting the underwater section, we enter a large room with a huge hologram of Regret, who gets to watch as I get filtered a lot.
Hey, you're a tile short of a roof!
Another for me.
After making it through, we go through another underwater section and we get more lore.
Regret's carrier just received a response from High Charity, a very well-encrypted message from the Prophet of Truth. Listen to this. Your haste has jeopardized the fulfillment of our covenant, threatened our grand design. That you shall be spared a public display of our contempt is thanks only to Mercy and his wise counsel. Truth, Mercy, Regret. 3 prophet hierarchs. Killing Regret should shake up the covenant leadership. But frankly, it sounds like you might be doing Truth a favor.
This is a glimpse into the intense politics within the Covenant that we never got in Halo 1. Exiting the submersible, we exit into one of the worst choke points in the entire game. Enemies have the high ground, and there's a lot of them. We fight through another large courtyard and get our last bit of support before boarding the final gondola. And we make it to the temple. We get to see High Charity and its accompanying fleet exit slipspace above the ring. And now we have the second boss fight of the game. Instead of listening to me, let's listen to, let's say, Marty O'Donnell explaining how you win this fight.
Actually, maybe jumping on his throne and beating him down. Maybe that was more fun.
That's cool. The Prophet's little hover chairs have giant guns on them.
Well, I mean, wouldn't you have giant guns on them in the world where
I was a
half metric ton cyborg was about to...
And the way you kill him, all I see is you punch him.
bludgeon him to death.
That's great. Okay, I'm going to grab that gun now because, I
no, you can't.
All right.
And thus, despite a few setbacks, we eventually... We eventually kill the Prophet of Regret, and after watching the temple be glassed, it's time to return to the Arbiter and the sacred icon. These next cutscenes are critical to understand the plot going forward. We see the ramifications of the killing of Regret. Truth has taken the radical step to cut down the political power of the elites, taking the role of honor guard from them and giving it to the brutes. The astute could and should surmise this is a move made purely out of self-interest. The brutes have been seen to be far less intelligent than the elites, which would mean controlling them is far easier. This scene is also where I think Michael Wincott's performance is put on full display.
Politics, how tiresome. Do you know, Arbiter, the elites have threatened to resign, to quit the High Council, because of this exchange of hats?
We have always been your protectors.
These are trying times for all of us.
Even as...
Regardless, our new mission as the Arbiter is to secure the sacred icon. We are dropped off by Tartarus, and noticeably, there's no elites inside of the Phantom. Being dropped off, we're introduced to the Sentinel Enforcer, and head through the Sentinel wall to disengage the shield that Miranda mentioned during the last mission. We get some Grunt and Jackal support as we fight through the Sentinels, and the little holes they pop out of. Now, I do have to admit, I really dislike this level. It's Halo 2's library. It's really just hallways and these boxes you have to hit, which have really bad hit registration when you try to melee them and save your ammo. Engaging the Enforcer itself is fine. It's actually quite easy to deal with when it's by itself, and we disable the shield, and when we do so, we find the Sentinels as well as the Flood. Fighting the Flood and Sentinels is more of the same room, with just more and more Flood as you progress. The shotgun and sword Flood are ready to one-shot you, and if you can't tell, I really dislike this level. Making extensive use of the active camo to skip as much as I possibly can, we eventually make it outside where we find Spec Ops elites engaging the Flood. Heading to a camp with the elites, you normally hold out until the level ends. However, I managed to softlock myself a few times, so I just had to skip to the next level, Quarantine Zone. Teaming up with the Spec Ops elites and a new vehicle, the Spectre, we have the opportunity now to speak on the vehicles in general in Halo 2, as the full breadth of the vehicle armory is now exposed to us. Firstly, we need to understand that the introduction of destructible vehicles in general changes the dynamics of how they fit into the sandbox. Whilst the Covenant vehicles could be destroyed in Halo 1 due to them being used by the enemy, you usually just died before that occurred. In Halo 1, so long as you survived the encounter while in a Warthog or Scorpion, once your shields recovered, you were back to 100%. All vehicles now have their own separate health bar that can be whittled away, forcing you to potentially switch vehicles. With AI improvements, you can confidently take the position of turret in vehicles, and have your AI drive you around. Kinda. They really aren't that good at it, often just running into things or getting stuck or their pathfinding breaking sometimes, and they just don't know how to dodge things like wraith shots. But you can do it. So let's start with the human vehicles. The M12 LRV returns with better handling, a weaker chain gun, but it's the Warthog. There really isn't much to speak about it. I'm just glad that turning hard doesn't immediately flip you over. The Warthog also gains a new variant, which has the almighty Gauss gun. This thing is a weapon of mass destruction. I recall BTB games being one based entirely on there being good Gauss Hog crews. It's frankly busted and superior to the original Warthog in every conceivable way. And as I stated earlier, the return of the M808B main battle tank is a complete upgrade to its Halo 1 counterpart. It's accurate, shoots fast, and has a non-useless coax machine gun. As for the Covenant vehicles, the Ghost's return is an overall better package, save for one thing, the introduction of a weak point, which means if you so much as sneeze on its power generator on the left side, it will immediately blow up. However, the fact that it is now actually accurate, meaning you can actually kill things that aren't sneezing distance, makes it a better overall package. The Wraith is odd, in that it will always lose to the Scorpion if it were to try to duel it, but it's still very dangerous if driven by a player. The AI get to use the self-defense plasma turrets while you can't for some reason. It is also much more threatening than the Halo 1 variant was, given that it shoots way faster. The Spectre is the Covey version of the Hog. It's pretty pointless, it is less maneuverable, and its turret is far less threatening, but it can hold an extra passenger, so in campaign I guess there's that. And finally, the Banshee returns, and again is a massive improvement over the original. The original was much slower, had a weird hitbox, and a habit of falling out of the sky whenever you tried to shoot anything. The ability to do Banshee maneuvers is helpful, but it's still made of paper, so anything that looks at it funny will destroy it. And the addition of the rocket launcher being able to track it means that if there's any rocket launchers in play in multiplayer, you will die. Overall, the vehicle sandbox has been greatly improved, with more defined roles and use cases for the entire roster. This next stretch of level is actually a lot more difficult than I remember it being. Then again, I'm no longer 8 years old, with the infinite amount of patience to slam my head into a wall. I did get filtered a lot in this stretch. Finishing the initial vehicle section, we fight through a crashed Sentinel factory with a lot of Flood and Sentinels. Eventually, I make it out to another vehicle section, where a conveniently placed scorpion allows us to fight our way to a new gondola. This is the last stretch where we have to fight against waves of flood with our elite allies, and we finally make it to the actual library and get to end the level and have a very long series of cinematics. Now, there is a reason there are long sections of cutscene, mostly due to cut levels. For example, there was supposed to be a level that bridged between Gravemind and Regret, Forerunner Tank.
Oh, I don't remember.
Forerunner Tank.
Oh,
Forerunner
yeah.
Tank.
Oh,
That's Forerunner Tank. And the greatest thing about Forerunner Tank is that Jones, for a year, we had this level on the whiteboard.
Yes.
And I would ask him, and Paul would ask him, and whoever would ask him, say, Jones, so what is a Forerunner Tank, and what does it do? And Jones, do you even know what it was supposed to do? Describe to me in 30 words or less
during this,
what
like,
a Forerunner
really long
Tank was and what it was supposed to do.
Be awesome, blow things up, glow a lot from little windows, move real fast.
All right, fine. That was less than 30 words.
This is our first introduction to the Gravemind, the overriding consciousness of the Flood. And I will avoid a verbose discussion of the lore here, as I'm mostly focused on what's happening in the game itself. Yet, we get to see why the ring is in a state it is. The Monitor 2401 Penitent Tangent has been captured by the Flood, along with the Prophet of Regret. This is where the Arbiter's faith, after being betrayed, is effectively shattered. The Gravemind utilizes the Rings of Teleportation to send the Chief to High Charity and the next level.
Boo! Kill the demon!
And next we begin the Gravemind, with one of the hardest combat encounters in the game, depending on your difficulty, simply due to the fact that you spawn in the middle of a bunch of enemies with just a needler. And also the way the new enemy, the Brutes, work. And with the introduction of the Brutes, it's time to do a gameplay breakdown of the enemies of Halo 2. Starting with the humble Grunt. Not much has changed since Halo 1. The primary change is that grunts have better firing patterns and significantly more dangerous in this regard. Thus, their primary role is being reinforced. The grunt is a level 1 threat, that if you allow it to be unchecked and they gain enough numbers, they can kill you. They have access to grenades, which they like to throw a lot, and can instantly kill you with those. Yet, they are easily dispatched, which creates the first layer of combat. Next are the Jackals. Again, they have been upgraded with better firing patterns, but they're still dealt with in the same way. They can kill you if left alone, but they require a bit of concentration to kill, and the correct equipment to kill quickly. They are a level 2 threat. However, a new addition is the Sniper Jackal. The Sniper Jackal I would call a level 2 or 3 threat, elevated to level 4 on Legendary. On Legendary, they can one-shot you and will hit you on their first shot. While it's on Heroic and below, they will two-shot you and often miss their first shot. Next, the titular elites, the player's peer opponent. They are shielded and wield heavier weapons. Their purpose is to be the level 3 threat. That all else equal, you want to focus them down. However, this holy trinity of enemies is what creates the beauty of the Halo combat formula. However, we now have new enemies to add to this mix. The Drone or Bugger is a new level 2 threat. They fly and can do consistent damage against you, so they can kill you if left alone. The Halo 2 Hunter is more resistant, yet also falls to precision weapons still, like the Sniper and Beam Rifle, rather easily. Their primary weapon has changed and is not nearly as threatening as the Halo 1 counterpart. And finally, we have the Brutes. The Halo 2 Brute is interesting in that it was an attempt to add a new level 3 threat, a new peer opponent, yet their implementation is awkward. They have a head plate that if you shoot it, it will fall off and protect them from being hit by precision weapons, yet without it, they die instantly, so they die in 2 hits. This would normally make them a simple level 2 threat alongside a Jackal, if they did not have other factors at play, such as their massive health pool and the ability to go berserk. The Halo 2 Brute actually has the same total health as a Hunter, while also able to go to berserk, which grants them damage resistance. This means they are actually pretty annoying to fight. Unlike the elites who are hyper-lethal threats where you think and plan on how to strip their shields to get a kill, the Brutes are either laughably easy, being able to two-shot them, but also hyper dangerous and annoying as you cannot backsmack them when they're berserk. They can tank energy sword hits while berserking as well, and they spam melee attacks while berserking, which will kill you if you don't kill them immediately. This means that the Berserk Brute becomes almost always a must kill, which is in and of itself antithetical to the entirety of the Halo combat formula. The core of the Halo combat formula is decisions. Every single combat encounter in a Halo game is a puzzle that you, the player, are given various tools in order to solve. These tools are the means you use to interact with the game world. The pillars, so your vehicles, weapons, allies, everything are tools you use to solve the problem of each encounter. Each configuration of enemies are a challenge the player needs to look into their environment to figure out how to beat it. An encounter with 4 grunts, 3 jackals, and 2 elites, the Holy Trinity, offers you unique challenges. Do you pick off the grunts and jackals so you can focus everything on the elites, or do you try to put down the elites as fast as possible so the grunts flee in terror, then you can actually focus on the jackals? Or do you snipe the jackals first and try to weave through the grunts to take on the elites? These are the moment-to-moment decisions, the 30 seconds of fun that Jamie Griesmer is famous for. And if you don't recall, Halo 1 was built on just having those 3 enemies. And thanks to the new additions of the buggers and the brutes, we can have more combat encounters. However, as I stated, the brutes cause an issue in this beautiful formula. The Berserk brutes become a must kill, which in turn takes choice away from the player. And given the immense amount of resources the player has to expend to take care of them, or the fact they require a precision weapon to pick them off before they can become Berserk, it forces the player to make certain decisions as opposed to allowing them to make them themselves. This, again, is antithetical to how the Halo is meant to be. This is further exacerbated with the Brute Shot. The Brute Shot is frankly a bad weapon in the hands of a player, yet is a hyper-lethal weapon in the hands of the Brutes, which in turn makes a Brute with a Brute Shot a near must-kill. While you can ignore them to make other decisions, the way that weapon works forces most players to just focus on them, which again steals your agency. This mistake can be attributed to the crunch. Much of the tuning and balancing that occurred in Halo 1 wasn't done here in Halo 2, as seen in Jamie Griesmer's talk at GDC.
It's totally going to drive you into cover. Turns out this is a terrible way to balance difficulty, but I didn't know that at the time. When we were calibrating, we didn't calibrate. Sorry about that, Halo 2. So almost at the end of the project, our AI counts got cut dramatically. We had to strip objects out like crazy, and we had very little time to recalibrate any of the weapons. So they ended up being about 15 world units per second. So slightly faster than Halo 1, and then on Legendary, much, much faster.
Despite the reasons, it's still a flaw in the once elegant balance of combat that was Halo 1. Thankfully, the buggers are an excellent addition to the combat formula. With that finished, let's engage the brutes with the Needler, one of the few non-precision weapons that can deal with brutes. This combat encounter here is difficult because of the distinct lack of cover and multiple waves of Covenant, and you don't get your hand on a precision weapon until you exit the area. Fighting through more Covenant, we head to the prison. This encounter is quite difficult, and I get filtered quite a lot. We free the Marines, and I always arm them up with carbines, which we can use to put down most enemies. Dealing with the reinforcements, it's time to deal with the Covenant Civil War. The elites and brutes are now engaging in a vicious civil war, and we could take advantage of this by waiting for the enemies to kill each other and picking off the survivors. This factor makes this one of my favorite levels in the game. When I was younger, I would often reload checkpoints over and over just to watch the brutes and elites fighting each other. Progressing through the level, we fight more and more Covenant, and they're also fighting amongst themselves. Now, there's one thing that comes up here that I also don't like: the arbitrary ally limitations. It's most prominent on this level, as even if you save all the Marines and keep them alive up to certain points, they will just stay behind for no reason. Throughout various points in this level, you're forced to only have a specific number of allies. My best guess is it's due to engine limitations in specific load zones, where the number of characters is limited. When I was a kid, I would always be confused as to why I couldn't have my Marines with me. Regardless, we get to see some of the key areas of High Charity from the previous cutscenes, eventually culminating in the Arbiter's Mausoleum, where originally the song from Breaking Benjamin would play. This is one of the most iconic combat encounters in the game. However, yet again, the Anniversary is forced to replace it with generic rock music due to copyright. It's irritating. I know why they did this, and it's the same reason I can't show you here, but oh well. Let's just move on. After we saw Amberclad jump in and crash into High Charity with no human life signs, it was itself a bad omen. But regardless, it's time to move on to the next level, Uprising. The Arbiter is back. We find tons of dead elites, with one who is dying telling us the brutes have betrayed us, and now it's time to cull the brutes. This combat encounter is the perfect example of how unbalanced the brutes are. We have no precision weapon to abuse, and so we have to use our active camo to get backsmacks, except I get filtered a bunch of times. After this initial encounter, it is time to take it to the brutes. We have the elites on our side, and we cut a swath through the brutes, jackals, and buggers. As you can see, we have the grunts on our side, and this aspect helps truly sell it as an actual civil war. Different members of the Covenant are picking sides, the grunts and elites versus brutes, jackals, and buggers. Eventually, after fighting through the brutes, we make it outside and get a vehicle section, and honestly, you just grab a ghost and speed boost through everything. And into the final area of the level, we fight more brutes and wraiths before we end the level. And it's time to return to Chief and High Charity. From the initial cutscene, we learn that Truth is heading to Earth, and will lead whatever is left of the Covenant fleet there, and will overwhelm the defenses of Earth. So we need to find a way to get to the key ship at the center of the city. The Flood are taking over High Charity, so we need to fight through both hordes of the Covenant and the Flood. With this level, let's take a moment to go over the Halo 2 implementation of the Flood. Halo 2 Flood are an interesting direction from Halo 1. Infection forms are here and they remain the same. They swarm and are dangerous to your shields, and are only really dangerous to you when your shields are down. However, they have an upgrade, in that they can reanimate Flood corpses, making you choose whether or not you should kill the infection forms or take care of their corpses, adding another layer to their combat. The combat forms have had some significant changes as well. They're faster and are much more intelligent, more likely to take cover when they have weapons instead of just charging mindlessly at you. The elite forms can be invisible and can have shields as well as carrying energy swords. Another new feature of the Halo 2 Flood is they're able to use vehicles, which is a demonstration of both the technological improvements of the gameplay and as well as how these Flood are more intelligent and coordinated than the Halo 1 version of the Flood. The carrier forms are back and are just as diabolical. Overall, the Halo 2 Flood are much less durable, however. They've lost their melee resistance and having their corpses being able to be destroyed via explosives and the energy sword. Yet their sound design and visual style is much more well defined in Halo 2, and the loss of durability does take away from their overwhelming nature. The overall vibes of the Flood is much better in Halo 2. And unfortunately, Bungie will never really find the right balance to how to make the Flood fun to fight. Regardless, we return to High Charity and fight through it. We're going to hear messages from Truth trying to inspire the Covenant forces here, while the Gravemind later on will have his own replies. Though this area with buggers filters me a lot. Finally making it past that area, we have some really dark hallways where I'm actually forced to turn up my gamma to see literally anything. And fighting through the rooms, we get to see how the Covenant forces are losing as the Flood takes more and more territory. And eventually we fight to the private quarters of the Prophets, where we saw the changing of the guard. And eventually, we fight outside and propel ourselves onto the keep ship, leaving Cortana behind, so she can detonate in-Ember-class reactors in case the ring is activated. And now it's time for the final level, the Great Journey.
Chief, when you get to Earth, good luck.
After I'm through with Truth.
Don't make a girl a promise if you know you can't keep it.
We start this level with a Wraith approaching us, where Halfjaw reveals himself, and we get to now take this Wraith and slaughter a lot of brutes, and fight to the docking area for a Scarab. Entering a side passage, we get to see the Hunters have sided with us. Using these new allies, we get to fight through a collection of brutes and jackals, which again, filter me. Filter me. Making it past this section and crossing a bridge, we find a prison area where several elite counselors and hunters are in jail cells, where freeing them, we get to watch them slaughter all the brutes. And then exiting this area, we get to save some Marines, including Johnson, from being executed. Cleaning out these brutes, Johnson decides to team up with us, and we get in a Banshee and cut down the forces in the way of a Scarab. And once we get to the door, Johnson uses the Scarab main gun to open the door to the control center.
Hey, bastard! Knock, knock!
Flying to the entrance, there is a final encounter with a selection of brutes, which of course filters me a lot. After winning this encounter, we get the final cutscene and boss fight for Halo 2. This is the moment Tartarus gets to shine. He learns the truth of the Halo rings, and yet, unlike the Arbiter, stays steadfast in his faith, which is the exact reason the Prophets chose the Brutes over the Elites. The final fight is the pinnacle of why boss fights just don't work in Halo games. We have to wait for Johnson to bring down Tartarus' shield so we can actually get in some damage, wherein Tartarus absorbs a ton of damage, even more so on Legendary, and whilst his fight isn't really all that challenging, you can easily kite him by jumping over the same pieces of geometry over and over again. Regardless, we eventually fell Tartarus and stop the ring from firing. With us learning there is an arc where the rings can be fired remotely, teasing the next game. And the final cutscene of the game is an infamous cliffhanger.
Listen, Tinkerbell, don't make me...
Then where? Where would someone go to activate the other rings?
Why the Ark? Of course.
And where, Oracle, is that?
We've got a new contact, unknown classification.
It isn't one of ours. Take it out.
This is Spartan 117.
Anyone hear me? Over.
Isolate that signal. Master Chief, you mind telling me what you're doing on that ship?
Sir, finishing this fight.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Halo 2. Multiplayer. Again, due to how the MCC works, I will not be really covering the multiplayer portion, as there's no real way to capture how the multiplayer worked at the time. What I can speak on is how Halo 2 was the launch title for Xbox Live. In fact, my first real experience with online multiplayer was with Halo 2, and Halo 2 created the modern online lobby, where groups of players could queue for matches all over the globe. With many of the game types such as BTB, Team Slayer, Capture the Flag, Oddball all gained their prominence here. Halo 2 built up the groundwork which many console shooters would use for generations. Having the ability to play as both an Elite and a Spartan created new ways for players to express themselves. I personally liked playing as an Elite. However, there were also issues here. The Elite model had a weakness where their back model allowed you to be backsmacked via their left shoulder, and their headshot model was actually where their neck was. The weapons were much more balanced and tuned in comparison to Halo 1. Having more weapons and vehicles allowed the sandbox to be more complex and free. Some of my oldest friends were made playing Halo 2 on Xbox Live. I recall I had a friend I made just because we used a Warthog without dying for an entire BTB match. Duels between shotguns and energy swords, beam rifles versus sniper rifles, all of these dynamics made for a revolutionary multiplayer experience. With iconic maps like Lockout and the beginning of the competitive scene, which inspired me to create a team, BXR4U, where we won a lot locally, but then the moment we traveled for a larger event, we immediately got slaughtered. I think some of the key features that created, like the proximity chat to allow you to shit-talk other people in close quarters, was awesome. Halo 2, much like its predecessor, set the standard for how online console multiplayer would work. Without the ability to play the version of multiplayer as it was, it is difficult to try to give a good faith analysis of how the multiplayer works, and much like my Halo 1 analysis, I can only go off my memory. While it is fresher as I was older at the time and was able to store more of it in long-term memory, I can really only go with vibes, and thus this section will have to unfortunately end here. As for the music, I won't repeat myself as I did in my first retrospective on how Marty and Michael make their music. But what I will say is that Halo 2's OST is my personal favorite in that most of the traps are absolute bangers. The experiment they did in branching out to outside artists such as Breaking Benjamin and Incubus, in my opinion, was just awesome. Of course, the tracks themselves can't be played here due to copyright. I'm a big fan of them. Jason Jones, unironically enough, disliked it, and thus it wouldn't be repeated in Halo 3. Marty and Michael were intentional in their construction of the Halo 2 OST. They made their music to be explicitly identifiable in Halo 2 as opposed to Halo 1. The Halo melody for Halo 2 is a representation of the melody of Delta Halo. And the Mjolnir mix of the Halo theme is an iconic riff from Steve Vai, with millions trying to learn that shit. I think it's mostly due to my age at the time and being exposed to this OST that made it my favorite. But the OST is one of the things that propelled Halo 2 to be my favorite Halo game. At the end of the day, Halo 2 was what propelled Bungie from a one-hit wonder to a powerhouse studio. However, this also came at great cost. Jason Jones himself had to go on a sabbatical from the stress. In fact, it was due to Halo 2 that Jones stepped away from directing the games and focused on the business management side instead. It was only due to the talent and passion of Bungie that we got the game we got. Halo 2 multiplayer set the standard for how online shooters would work on console. The campaign further demonstrated that there was an appetite for storytelling in first-person shooters, with millions of fans, myself included, eagerly waiting for the sequel. Halo 2 was a game that I desperately wanted to play even while vomiting in a hospital bed, and getting to play this sequel to such a formative game from my childhood further cemented Halo as the series into my soul. Halo 2 was the game that led me into the world of online gaming that was previously gatekept by the power of the PC. It was the game that allowed me to meet so many people across the globe. Halo 2 was the game that completely cemented my love for video games. So how does Halo 2 hold up in 2026? Unlike Halo 1, Halo 2's combat and gameplay was refined enough to be more definitively Halo, quote-unquote. The free-flowing combat, shields, and enemies created a more defined style that's able to assert itself as a standalone game design that can stand the test of time. Whilst the art style is markedly dated upon comparison, as previously mentioned, the core gameplay systems of Halo 2 stand up today. Instead of feeling the age of the movement in Halo 1, for instance, Halo 2 stands as Halo instead of being a relic, which means the Halo style has been defined and takes its place among gaming in general. Now, stepping outside the retrospective for a second, I want to talk about where this franchise actually stands today, because I can't in good conscience talk about my love for this series without addressing it. After playing the disaster that was the Halo 1 remake, I live in fear of 343 trying and daring to remake the remainder of the trilogy. It's already happened with Star Wars, with that series being bastardized by Disney, and 343 spending the last 10 years failing over and over and over again. Their attempt to rebrand as Halo Studios has again been fraught with failure. Playing this game again has at least salved my hate a little bit, allowing me to have fun with Halo again, and I think the release of the Halo remake and my producing of this video has inspired me to continue with the production of this series, which of course means the next video in this series will be the capstone of the trilogy, Halo 3. This has been Zach with etc. etc. Thanks for watching.